Hey Riverside, welcome to our midweek video. Sorry that we're getting this up a little late. I've had some back problems this week, but we didn't want to forget it, so we are jumping right in this morning with sharing just a few things as we continue to explore the life of Jesus. Now last week, I made mention that for most of Jesus' childhood, the Bible really does not have much to say. It's kind of the big blank page, and we made some considerations last week, and we thought about how the Bible talks about the humanity of Jesus and how he really was a human and everything that he experienced and sacrificed because of that. But there is one event that the Bible does record in Jesus' childhood or young age, and I wanted to share that with us this morning, and I wanted us to consider some repercussions from that. This comes from Luke chapter 2, and just want to share this with you real quick this morning. Starting in verse 41, it says this, that every year Jesus' parents went to Jerusalem for the Passover festival, and when Jesus was 12 years old, they attended the festival as usual. And after the celebration was over, they started home to Nazareth, but Jesus stayed behind in Jerusalem. His parents didn't miss him at first because they assumed he was with the other travelers. But when he didn't show up that evening, they started looking for him among their relatives and friends. When they couldn't find him, they went back to Jerusalem to search for him there. 3 days later, they finally discovered him in the temple, sitting among the religious teachers, listening to them and asking questions. All who heard him were amazed at his understanding and his answers. His parents didn't know what to think. "Son," his mother said to him, "why have you done this to us? Your father and I have been frantic, searching for you everywhere." "But why did you need to search?" he asked. "Didn't you know that I must be in my father's house?" But they didn't understand what he meant. And then he returned to Nazareth with them and was obedient to them. And his mother stored all these things in her heart. Quick little story, not too much information. The family makes a trip every year to Jerusalem, and Jesus goes with them. And by the age of 12, right as he's beginning to become a young man, on this particular occasion, he goes off to talk to the religious leaders. Basically, he decides he's going to hang out at church. Well, the parents don't realize that he's missing. 3 days later, they finally find him, and they're frantic, man. I can't imagine what I would be like if I couldn't find one of my kids for 3 days. I would be freaking out. And they seem a lot more coherent when they address him than I would have been. Man, I've been yelling at him like crazy. "Jesus, what were you thinking? When you get home, I don't care if you're 12, you're getting a whipping." I mean, I would have been furious. But Jesus is real calm about it, and he shares this whole idea of, he's stunned that they don't know where to look for him, that he's obviously going to be in his father's house. Seems really kind of straightforward. Seems like all the answers are there. We sit back and we're amazed. Oh, at 12, Jesus is a real deep kid. He's wowing the religious leaders with his answers, and he's asking questions. But I'd like to look at the implication a little bit more. I'd like to look at the implication of God working in the life of a young man. You see, I think many times, like Mary and Joseph, we have our own expectations for the young people around us. The teenagers, our kids. We have our own expectations. We project onto them what we think they should be doing, where they should be, what should be going on in their lives. And some of those are absolutely rational. They're normal. They're the way that it should be. I have expectations for my children, and they will meet them while they live in my house. And that's proper. That's correct. But sometimes we cross that line, and all we can see is what our expectations for the youth and for our kids, only our expectations are what matters. And yet God has created each individual, regardless if they've achieved what we consider maturity or not. He's created us all with purpose, with passion, and with destiny. In Jesus' case, it definitely was to go on and fulfill the mission that God had sent him here to rescue mankind from their rebellion. And yet, the same applies to kids in general. You know, I think many times we look at our kids and all we can see is our expectations for them. All we can see is our perception of them, and we look and we say, oh, okay, they're my kids, they don't understand, they don't know, they are limited. And we forget that God has uniquely created them to be who He has designed them to be. I want us to consider the fact that there's a 12-year-old in Jesus hanging out at church, wanting to know and grow in his relationship with his Father. I want us to consider how that crosses lines. Guys, I think in church too often, we look at young people and we have hedged them in to be what our expectations are. And let me tell you, we're doing the church a disservice. Just like Jesus at 12 was seeking the things of God, we have young people as a part of our community right now that are desperate for the things of God, that want to be in His house, that are seeking Him. And instead of giving freedom in church in general, we confine them. We put limitations on them because of our expectations. Hey, you're supposed to be at home. Hey, you're supposed to be doing what I tell you to do. You're supposed to be having your life shaped by my perception of what it should be, instead of allowing God to rise up in them. Church, if we want to see our country changed, if we want to see the areas that we live in made different because of Jesus working in our lives, let me tell you where it's going to start. It's not going to start with you and I. We've already formed our worldview. There's no one that's going to come in and convince me different at this point in what I believe. It would take God to change me. No, we've already got it down. A lot of times we're settled in our ways. It's going to be the youth of today who love Jesus, who know that they have a destiny in Him, and who are able to consider new and fresh ways to reach out to people that need God in their lives. Riverside, let me share with you a part of my heart for what we're going to be, and that is we are going to be a church that appreciates and focuses on the young people as a part of our community. Whether they're teenagers, whether they're in their early 20s, newly married, whatever the case might be, those people that we usually look at and say, oh, they can't, we are going to try our best to release into the destiny that God has for them. Let me throw some names out to you real quick as we consider this. Let's throw out David when he's fighting that giant. He's a young man. He's a teenager. He's not an adult. How about Daniel and his friends when they get drug off to Babylon and he's going to face all kinds of trials? The first time he stands up for what's right, he's a teenager. Mary, the mother of Jesus. Oh, women got married really early back then. They weren't in their 20s. They were married a lot earlier. There's scholars who suggest that many of Jesus' disciples weren't the old men that we see in the Da Vinci painting, but rather they were young men who were passionate and wanted to know God and were dissatisfied with the ways that they had been given Him by the religious leaders at the time. Let's be honest. We need to start releasing our young people, the students, the youth, the teens, the young men and women who are trying to discover what God has for them. We need to help them develop. We need to shape them. We need to help them rise up in their destiny of what they're going to become. I want to give opportunity at Riverside so that when they come, they can hang out in their Father's house. Now that can mean some issues. It can mean some difficulties. But we're going to go with it anyway. Love you, Riverside. I hope you have a great week, and we will see you on Sunday morning. Bye-bye.